Hey everyone, this is Nick Chalon, the founder of Assage and former Chief Software Officer for the Air Force and Space Force. We got so many questions following our videos on the NIST cybersecurity compliance, and many people asking how this could also be used for your acquisition, documentation, and generation of RFPs, RFP responses, and also how to grade RFP responses as well. So we've seen now government teams use Assage to write RFPs, RFIs, but also to use Assage to grade RFP responses from vendors to be able to decide and help decide who to select. We've also seen the other side, the contractors like us, use Assage to respond to RFIs and RFPs. For us at Assage, we've taken this now process multiple times, and we reduced the time from 5 days on average down to 32 minutes. We've used Assage to write our cyber phase 1 and phase 2 documentation. We've used it to respond to RFPs and RFIs, and I'm going to walk you through one of the recent bid we've done here on Tradewin to respond to the JFAC bid, and kind of show you how I think about this process and how this helps me get this done. All right, so I'm logged in here to our Tradewin portal. So as you can see, this was a bid that was there back in April, and as you can see here, is closed now, but this is kind of the information we received. A lot of schemas, but also a lot of great textual information here, and really showing the use cases and also the proposal process. That was very important to tell GPT to follow that detailed round one discovery paper here that the government wanted. They also had very precise information here about the questions and answering it in the order provided here, from problem alignment, value proposition, program impact, program office demand, quality of pros, etc. And also, of course, the evaluation criteria was important for us because we wanted to make sure that the answer would be meeting all the acceptance criteria for the government standpoint. So that's what we also asked the bot to do. So the first thing we've done when we got this bid is we downloaded the attachment here. And so we're going to do that just so you can see effectively what's on there. And what you can see here is effectively the exact same documentation here, a little bit more detail and information, but it's kind of copy and pasted from the same website. So we're gonna save this now. All right, so we got the PDF. We're gonna now go to Assage. So the first thing I'd like to do is create a new data set, and so we're going to do that, and I'm going to call it JFAC. So now we can go into the plugin, and what we're going to do is use the summarize file plugin because it's a PDF. So we're going to look for the PDF here, and I'm going to tweak a little bit the prompt. I'm going to say provided RFP, focusing on the main points and maybe and key requirements, and then I'm going to pick the data set here and submit. So what the bot does now is extracting all the text from that PDF. So now we got the text here, and so we have this prompt generated for us. And so now we're going to be able to take that and summarize the content. So all we got to do now is wait for the bot to generate the summarization information here. All right, so we got the summaries. It did 1, 2, 3 summaries, and we could aggregate that or ask it to further summarize. It's asking me if I want to train it. I'm going to train it into my data set, but I don't really need to do that, but I'm going to do it just to show you. But you don't really need to train the bot on the data set. Now what it's asking me now is whether or not I want to further summarize the content. And it's a little long. There's a lot of information here. I could just read that, or I could just ask it to further summarize. And so I'm just going to ask it to do one more summary. It helps me really get a better understanding of the content without having to read that much information. But obviously, if you're going to do a full bid, and I know this bid well, but if you probably want to read the content, you also want to kind of think about kind of key differentiators that you have from your company standpoint and value proposition that you're going to bring to this bid. So that's always good to have. So we have this now, summarize bid. RFP now with all the information about the discovery paper, 2-pager, etc. So that's good for us to be able to read and see what they are trying to achieve. So now I'm going to cancel that and be done. So now that we got this trained summarization, that's helpful for us, right, to kind of think about, okay, what kind of value do I bring as a company, and what kind of key facts or information do I want to bring into the bot in my prompt to generate the RFP response, right? Because you want to tailor it. So the first thing we did is, we trained the bot on Assage. Just to show you some of that training, if I look into our data set, that's going to show you some of the training we've done. And, that's the first thing you should do is really kind of give a little bit of insights about the company, right? So we say, Assage is a platform that use OpenAI GPT and GPT-like technology, blah, blah, blah. We have here a whole description of the company and how many customer teams and government teams, and a little bit of information about me, what kind of model we use, and kind of, so we actually had a pretty vast documentation. We ask you to summarize it. Well, you don't want to, be too verbose when you train the bot. You want to be to the point. So I actually always ingest data by first asking the bot to summarize it, right? So then we can ingest it. So, we have ingested that. We have our privacy policy and different information here, our YouTube playlist, and the hosting information about, the APIs that we use, and the ATO information there. So, that's a bunch of information right there that can be used. Now, keep in mind the bot is going to try to pull, the most relevant information. So it might, if you have a lot, it might not bring the right information when you're going to do your RFP response. So it's always good to be able to insist on the points that you want the bot to focus on. And so let's look at the RFP response plugin here. That's the right RFP response, and that's using GPT-4 32K, which is expensive. It's going to be like a couple of bucks to write this prompt. So keep that in mind. You don't want to mess up again and again. But I'll just play with it. It's expensive, but it brings a ton of value, right? You're gonna get a great set of information there, and the full potential RFP response. So the way we structure this, and that's the way we actually use the JFAC bid, is that one, you have to give a little bit of context about who you are. So I always put something like, I am the CEO and founder of Assage. So I have that here, and then I copy and paste the RFP here. So what I have it already in my prompt, so we can just do that. So I'm gonna copy that. So I'm just copying the entire RFP. And by the way, I check first, when you copy and paste it, you want to see how many tokens it is for this kind. This was pretty short, so you don't need to summarize it or do anything with it. The bot will do that for you if it's too long, but it's good to have the full context, because it's less likely to miss key points or requirements. So it's good to have the full bid there, right? So all right, so now that I copy and pasted the RFP here, the next step is to provide key context about the company. And again, this is where I use that example here, and that's now a little dated, but it has information about the company. I also noticed that they're talking about the TRL, the TRL levels, and so I insisted there. I also insisted that we also bring plugin integrations and decision trees, and tap into data lakes and warehouse and APIs, and able to ingest CUI data that we can ingest, vast amount of data. So I kind of, looked at the bid and kind of wanted to insist on some of the key points they were already, talking about inside of that bid. So in this context here, you can put as much as you need, right? But this is super important here to do that effectively. So this is now my prompt here. And then you ask it then what to do here. And so this is where I put something like, make sure you follow all the RFP requirements, so the paper will be graded as acceptable, and follow their proposed order, answering all the required questions. Make sure you provide a detailed insight on the value proposition and explain exactly how can GPT and Assage be leveraged to bring the solution they're looking for. Provide at least 1 or 2 concrete detailed use cases. Leverage as much information provided in the context of the RFP to write the RFP answer. Following their specific guidance, write the 2-page, 1,000-character detailed discovery paper to show how Assage meets the RFP requirements. So keep in mind the 2 pages or 1,000 characters, the bot is not very good at conning characters and stuff, so it's gonna definitely be wrong. So just keep that in mind. That's not gonna be precise at all. So now that I have both my bid, my context, what you could also have done, right, is you could have created a data set about, so we have a data set about the company. For us, we have a data set about maybe some past performance information, right? So you can create data sets, train, and then you can don't select, right, and only pick the ones that you think, hey, that's the one I want to focus on, because you don't want to confuse the bot with past performance about something else that's not relevant, and it might be confused and start writing stuff that makes no sense, right? So for us, it was important to pick the data sets you want to bring in your search and really make sure that that narrows down kind of the answer, right? And so keep in mind, you can create a bunch of different data sets. You could do one for the company, then you could do one for each past performance information, maybe one for specific technology that you have. So you can kind of cut it to make sure that the bot is going to be able to pick the right information. But then in the prompt, that's why you want to insist on the key points, because you never know which ones are going to be selected. And so that's always, something important to insist on. Here in my prompt, I insisted on a few key points that are trained in the bot, but it might be not realizing that this is so important. So I always like to insist, and so we're gonna update, make sure everything is accurate, all the latest information here. Over 6,000 teams using Assage today, blah blah blah. So now what I like to do is I will copy and paste that. I like to do a new chat because you want to start clean. Okay, so new chat. You look at the live has to be off. You pick your data sets that you want to bring. For me, I'm gonna bring them all, but you would probably want to don't select to the ones that matter to you. GPT 432K, and then you can execute that. All right, so now it's showing you the prompt is going to be running, and it kind of templated it for us. So it's good to read what it says here. So as you can see, it kind of formatted the prompt, added context about the company, request for proposal, and then you have the RFP here, and then you will see action, right? And so do you want to execute this prompt, yes or no? That gives you a chance to just double check that everything is correct, and it is, so I'm going to say yes. All right, so this process will take some time because GPT 432K will generate a pretty large amount of content, so it's going to take a couple of minutes. So you're going to sit and wait, make sure you don't disconnect your connection, you don't do a new chat, you don't type something else. You really have to wait for the completion to finish. All right, so we got the discovery paper. It was generated. What's super interesting is it did follow all the steps and all the key aspects. Sometimes you find that, hey, it's not giving you the right introduction. In this example, it did not give me some kind of introduction piece here. This is pretty close to probably a page and a half, so you have room. So you could do follow-ups, and that's where I like to do things. Let's say quality of prose is too long. I want to expand that. And then what I could say here is this response is missing an introduction regarding the value proposition of Assage and GPT design for government teams. Add it at the beginning of the paper. And I'm gonna say detailing, and here I'm gonna say yeah, that's good. So let's try that. And I keep the GPT-432K because you want to keep the same context window, where you want to use those 32,000 tokens, so you're not losing all that insight information, otherwise it's going to get confused. So I like to do that and keep that in there. So now we're going to wait. Alright, so here, as we can see, added a nice introduction, which is perfect. Has the order we wanted. A little conclusion might not be enough. You may want to tell it to tweak it, add, expand, add information here. But again, we ask it a 2-pager. So if I now look at what that would look like in a Word document, let's take a look at what so now I'm gonna copy and paste this, and all you got to do is click on that little copy here, and I'm gonna put it into a Word document. So just so you know, this is what I had received the last time I did it. And again, every time you're going to run the prompt, you may get a different response. But, very similar: program alignment, value proposition, program impact, program office demand, quality of prose, right? So it was a 2-pager, right? Very similar. But if I were to, do it with the content we got now, I can copy and paste it. All I got to do is put a few things in bold, or do some formatting here, for each section, quality of prose, program office demand, and I'm close to the 2-pager, right? Because I have also a header I'm gonna add and different things. So I'm pretty close to the 2-pager. You could add a little bit more detail. You could ask it to expand on a few things, but also what's interesting is I want a good title, right? So what I could do is say write 5 catchy titles that would convince government employees to select Assage for this RFP. The other thing I would do, right? So once you're done, what you could do is you copy and paste your final RFP, and you ask the bot to assess whether or not it meets the RFP requirements. That's always very interesting to think about. So here is my 5 titles that I get. The future of holistic assurance. That's interesting. Transforming with Assage. Revolutionizing zero assurance case. So all these titles are good. You could pick whatever you want. I had a different one, but they're all the same. So but my title here, do some formatting, whatever you need to do. Right, and so now you have the 2-pager response. I would probably add a couple of insights, maybe a couple of examples. I could say something like write one particularly relevant example of a use case of Assage to solve one of their biggest problem or issue directly related to the RFP. And I might add that example at the end or something. Just add a little bit of info, and you can decide. So you could say something like, show me all my past performance relevant examples, and we can also tap into and connect with Assage into your data sets. Could be SharePoint, although SharePoint is not great. We try to ingest that into Elastic or something, and then you can do a better query. So ingesting the PDF or Word documents into Elastic, and then Assage queries Elastic to be able to pull from that. So something to think about, right, is to integrate with your past performance data, so you have that ability to search in real time directly from the bot. It's a great way to do it. That's how I do it. We have a database for that. This example is too long, so I would say something like summarize this example to 1,000 character. Although, like I said, the bot is not really good at understanding characters or tokens or pages. So, it's never going to be 1,000 character, so just something to think about. All right, so you have an example here. You can copy that here and do a example of a use case, and then of course do your formatting, and that's a good start here. So that's how we've done it. Of course, you read it, you make sure that everything is factual. You can hallucinate, but it's very unlikely. If you train it right, it's going to do that. I've yet to have to change stuff. Often I want to tweak stuff, or maybe forgot about something we can do, or we didn't insist enough on a key point of value proposition. So that's something I like to tweak and review. Then once you have the final version, what you could do is you could do something like creating a new prompt. So like I like to do is do a new chat, right? All right, so now what I would do, right, when I do my assessment of my bid to see whether or not I meet all the requirements, and double checking the same way the government would potentially do it to assess your bid. That's very interesting, right? So I would say something like, I am Nick Chalon, the CEO of Assage, and we're answering a government RFP. I put the current RFP response, so I copy and pasted the Word document we just did in here, right? So we have this full RFP response. Then I copy and paste the government RFP, so I put government RFP, and here I have the full RFP. And then you'll see end of government RFP, and then action. And I put assess whether or not our response meets all the RFP requirements and will be found acceptable and likely to be awarded by the government, provide any insights or improvements we could make to ensure we win this bid. And I put GPT-4 32K again, although we don't really need it. We only had 4,000 tokens, but it's good to, you could have put GPT-4 on that one. So always check your tokens, see how much the question is, and then, see also how much the response would have to be. But also don't forget, we also add context based on your data set, so that could add a bunch of tokens in your prompt. So for this I like to keep GPT-4 32K. Costs a little bit more money, but it's definitely worth it. Save me a lot of time. It appears to me most of the requirements, however there are a few areas that could be improved. The response does a good job explaining how the solution aligns. However, it could provide a more specific example. Okay, and this one, more details on how. This one, why. Okay, so now it's giving me a lot of great insights. So I could say something. Okay, I like your recommendations. Implement them in my RFP response to solve those issues. All right, so now it did update the use case and added security compliance and technical detail, and very interesting. It actually really drastically improved the answer here. So let's say this is why it really makes sense to do that. In fact, you could do it iteratively and keep asking it to improve until you're satisfied. So now I'm gonna copy this into Word, right? So I'm gonna also make it in bold and kind of format it, and I'm gonna reduce a little bit the font here, make sure it fits the Arial 10 the government was asking for. So yeah, with 2 pages here. So you can see here, right? Massive enabler. Took me 20 minutes to do something that would have taken me between 5 to 10 hours easily to do, and then I can now tweak it, review it, augment it, improve it. But really massive time saver. And again, this is just an example on the small response. You could do that iteratively with bigger content as well. And also the government can use it to write RFPs, clauses, and even pick between different contracting vehicle options, IDIQs, BOAs, BPAs. The bot is able to assist there, but also help in grading, like we've seen, and even defining grading acceptance criteria. So you could say, based on this RFP, what would be the right criteria of acceptance to review the bids and grade them to be fair and meet the fall and default requirements. So you could really use it both to write the RFPs, respond to the RFP, and grade the RFP responses. We already had actually a use case where the government issued an RFP with using GPT Assage, and then responded. The companies responded, and we know some companies that responded using Assage as well. And then the government graded the bids using Assage. So that kind of the full acquisition life cycle there to issue a contract. So again, massive enabler. We see on average between 10 for people that just get started to really 35x increase of velocity. So one person turning into 35. It's a game changer. If you have any questions, reach out to us, sales@assage.ai. Also check out our Discord chat. If you have any questions, we are here to help you with your prompts. Again, it's all about prompt engineering. It's all about getting things done. It takes a little while to get used to it. It's part of the pain you have to go through. It's probably the most important skill you can get. Hopefully this showed you another great example on how we use Assage every day to augment our velocity and our ability to compete. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe.